Welcome back to another tabletop video. The BB6 by BB6 is a gun I've wanted to get my hands on for years. Finally have one. Sadly a bit too late. More on that and what makes this gun so darn cool coming up next on GBGuns. So to understand the BB6 and what's so odd about it, you need to understand where it comes from and what BB6 was or is. Wilhelm Bubitz is a man who worked for Glock, worked for Walther, worked for Steyr, worked for Caracal, and then seems to have either taken all of those ideas and put them together into one gun, or taken ideas from those companies and put them into one gun. I don't know. It was teased by various different importers for years, never seemed to get picked up, and now, to my understanding, BB6 is defunct. The company is gone. I happened to find one of these thanks to one of you viewers who said, hey, Classic has a few of these on hand, grab one, and I did just in time before they all disappeared. Those of you who haven't seen one of these before, my tabletop videos that is, I go through the manual to look to see how thorough they are. Also to see if they use real photos or if they use renderings and what level of instruction is in them, because it might be your first gun. Not sure if a BB6 would be anyone's first gun, but there it is. Let me get this paperwork out of the way and the box out of the way, and we'll go over what all makes this thing so darn unique. So this is the rest of what came in the case there. Go ahead and bring the camera down. We're having some weird lighting today. The gun, of course, will show clear. 15 round magazine inside. Notice I kicked that out because the magazine release is truly ambidextrous. I appreciate that because sometimes reaching with the thumb is not as easy as hitting my middle finger on there. Same thing with the paddle releases. 15 round mag inside, 18 round mag also included. Gives me a full hand grip, which I appreciate. Witness windows on the side where I can see them when I pop the mag out of the gun real quick to see how many are left. So I appreciate that. You also get your interchangeable back straps. We will test those in our shooting impressions video and show how they impact hand fit, both for myself and for Ms. Tia, who of course has smaller women's hands. Notice this angle here and shape is very Steyr-esque. That's one of the things that either Bubitz had to do with Steyr, or he took with him from Steyr. We also got this piece here, which looks a little confusing at first. This is a quick sight system, also sometimes referred to as a gutter sight. You push out that rear sight, and this sits in its place, locates itself on there, and what that does is give you, if you can imagine, a real quick, easy flip-up pointing system. This sight system was used on the Caracal. We have a video on that of the UAE Caracal. The US Caracal unfortunately was never sent, so I don't know if that stuck around or not. We also got this bit, optics mounting system. See these cuts here in the slide? I'm going to zoom in. And this is just some of the uniqueness of this thing. You mount your optic to this plate. It comes with the screws. Bring it forward, down and back, and you heard it click and lock in, and it's now locked on there. Yes, it's polymer, but it's not moving. And it's locked not only on those four sides, but also on the middle. To remove it, you have to lift up on this bar. There's a spring-loaded bar in there. That comes forward and off. You can see that's that bar that is locking into that groove there. Just some of the unique things about this gun. You may also notice that the top of the slide is closed. We do have a loaded chamber indicator pin that would pop up were there to be a round in the chamber, so you can see and feel if there's a round there. Bubitz himself explains the closed top end here as a way of increasing rigidity in the slide. Has rigidity ever been an issue? Maybe not, but this is a different slide. Coming around the front, you see this face here is polymer. It's like a polymer bushing that is pinned into the front of the slide. The barrel itself has a very nice target crown. You can see the depth there. Slide to frame fit, super tight. Speaking of tight, that barrel's not going anywhere. I can't move it, and part of that is the locking face is on the front and rear of this edge here. Unlike on your standard Browning system, you normally see it on the front or front and back of the barrel up front. Why did he move it back there? Well, because with it being that far back, the barrel doesn't have to tilt as much. So you'll notice if I lock the slide to the rear, how relatively straight the barrel has remained versus what you would see on, say, a Glock or any other standard basic open top slide setup. As it comes forward, everything locks up in there, and good and tight, or guten tight if you want to make some German jokes, since Mr. Bubitz is Austrian. We have 2 slots for accessories on here, plenty of relief. Cut up there. You notice the trigger guard is cut back some. That's for those who want to shoot with the support hand finger hooked in there. It actually gives you a spot to nestle that finger in. Trigger guard has a nice high relief here, allowing my large hands to get 2.5 fingers on there. Not bad for a 15 rounder. And this bit here is the safety. I saw this once on a Canik that was a very short run limited Canik, done for some type of military contract that required it. I wonder if they took the idea from Bubitz or Bubitz from them, or they just happen to have the same idea. But with this up here, that trigger doesn't move at all. It's like pulling on a brick wall with your finger. There's no movement. Click it down, and we've got a trigger. Speaking of, it's a little heavier than most, probably around 6.5 pounds, but very clean. So it comes back, there's a wall there, and it breaks. Reset. Not super long, not super short, decent, very crisp, very definitive, very audible, and you get a little bit of kick in your finger for the tactile. Front strap has these serrations here that are very similar to what Mossberg later used on their setup. I think that's kind of just coincidental but funny. And these interesting swells here that guide your fingers to wrap around, and on the other side fill the palm very nicely. Underneath we don't have any beveling because, as I've said a million times before, when you have a double stack single feed magazine like this one, see where it's 2 wide and then it goes down to 1 for feeding, your magazine is your mag well. I do like that the back strap hangs down a little bit to give you something to index off of on the way in. The magazines are somewhat reminiscent of Steyr, though the catch window is cut in a unique spot, which unfortunately means finding spare mags might be tough. Or I'll have to cut some other mags. Looking at our backstrap texturing, you can see these downward sort of V's. That at least gives you something for when the gun is trying to rock to grip and guide flesh into halting the movement of the gun. I think that's a nice touch. Also notice if I can get the light to shine on it, the rounding of these edges here. We're about to have a cat incursion. That rounding keeps the knuckle nicely protected. However, I do worry about my flesh getting too high up under there. Get out of here, cat. That's not Tacti Kitty. That is another cat that we've adopted recently, who is not very tactical. Here's our sight picture. It's similar to the trapezoidal system in that the shape here guides you to the center, that tall blade sight up front, and you might notice that the back plate on the slide is also polymer. More on that in a second. Coming around the right side of the gun, our safety's on both sides, our mag release is on both sides, and functional on both sides. Demonstrate once more. You can see I have nothing on the back side of the gun. I'll push, mag kicked out. Now for inside the gun, we've got more interesting and different things to see when we field strip this thing. Field stripping the BB6 is also a little bit different. I've only seen it one other place, and that would be on a Canik, and we've already got this safety that we've seen on a Canik once before. So I wonder what the inner lace is there. We do have the pull down tabs, much like you'd have on many other polymer striker fired guns. Pull the trigger, pull down on the tab, let the slide go forward a little bit, and it just comes off the top. That's all there is to it. Looking inside our frame, we can see a nice large insert that feels like polymer because it's got grease on it, but I'm betting it's steel. You can see the machining on the feed ramp there. Very clean setup. I also find it interesting that the slide lock release is polished on the part that interacts with the slide rather than coating it. It's kind of a nice touch. Kind of Walther-esque looking in here. Inside our slide, lift up and pull out. On our recoil assembly, it is a plastic guide rod with a flat coil spring. And you notice the steps there are kind of V-shaped. That keeps the guide rod from wandering or being misplaced. Speaking of lockup, show you. I've got side to side, nothing front to rear, very tight. Go ahead and pull that barrel out. Nicely machined. It appears to be full chamber support. We'll check that in a moment. And inside our slide, I want you to see something that I've only seen one other place, and that's the Walther PPQ SC. Behind the steel breech face, which is stamped with the CIP and 9mm. CIP is sort of the European SAMI, if you will, meaning that it's been proofed and checked. We have this polymer insert to house the striker and all that. So rather than like Glock, where it's an expensive milled piece of steel, and then they insert a polymer guide to keep the striker from beating itself up, etc. This is all a polymer housing. It is removable, however, I've been warned that voids warranty, as if warranty mattered anymore, and is not end-user serviceable. But that comes out from here to here is all a removable housing piece. Kind of interesting. I want you to also see we have what appears to be an ejector. So there's our striker sticking out. Get the camera in there. There's our striker sticking out. And up top here, yep, it's got some pressure on it. Can't get a finger in. Is what appears to be a spring-loaded ejector. Or spring-loaded assist. I could be totally wrong on that. Don't take my word for it, but that's just what it looks like to me. Interesting, they went with an internal extractor. It does have plenty of clearance though, room between. Of course I put away the pick and that's why I need it again. Here's your extractor, and there is more width than this pick of space for that extractor to be able to move. So shouldn't be too much trouble there. Interesting setup. Using our nozzle match as always, because that's our standard. We're going to check chamber support. And what we're looking for those unfamiliar with it, is how well is the brass supported beyond that edge. It appears to be fully supported. The reason why that's important is when the round goes off and all that pressure is trying to expand things, if you have weak brass, let's say a cheap aluminum case or reloads, or maybe something's loaded a little bit too hot, when the case fails, it's going to look for a way out. And unsupported chambers, like you see in older Glocks, are well, where that force goes, and that's how you end up with a blown up gun. Reassembly, pretty straightforward. You're going to get everything lined up on here and pull back. Slide back, everything's back together. Quick functions check. And it's all together. Safety will not engage if the striker is disarmed. Interesting oddball piece. A lot of innovation in here, a lot of things done differently. I'm really curious to see how it runs. The spring has some good strength to it. That combined with such a small ejection window, and we've reviewed other guns that have small windows that ran without issues, I'm curious if we're going to have any issues in our What's for Dinner test. Also curious about how it'll perform between target crown to help protect the rifling, that lockup system, and these sights. I'm curious what we'll get for accuracy. I think we'll also, if I have a red dot that fits that plate, slap a red dot on and see if that system returns to 0 well enough. And of course we will also try those different back straps, all when we get to our shooting impressions video. Now this is kind of short and straight through, but this is a gun I've been itching to handle for years, and it kept being teased over and over. First ISSC was going to handle it, then I think ATI was going to handle it for a bit, and then it disappeared, and nobody ever picked it up. And from what I hear, unfortunately BB6 has since folded. The company is out of business. This one is only serial number 443, so let's hope at least 500 were imported. If you get your hands on one, or if you've had your hands on one, let us know in the comments what your thoughts and experiences were, and I am anxious to get this guy out to the range. Thanks for watching.